Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with olive oil mashed potatoes. That's right, we're making vegan mashed potatoes, but not on purpose. It just so happens that the best way to make olive oil mashed potatoes is to not use any butter or any other dairy products whatsoever. And if you've never had these before, prepare to be shocked. And to get started, we're going to peel about 3 1/4 pounds of russet potatoes, which for me were 3 giant ones. And of course, as always, we're going to peel these with long, confident strokes. And the reason to go with the russet is because it's the fluffiest, starchiest, most absorbent potato, which is exactly what we need here. All right, a lot of people use Yukon Gold for these, but that's not because it's a better potato texturally, but rather because the color looks like you've added butter to them, which I guess people think is important since we're not adding butter to these. But to me, that's just not good enough a reason. Plus, as you'll see, I chose a golden olive oil, which is why I got the best of both worlds. A perfect texture and beautiful buttery color. But anyway, no matter which you choose, once those are peeled and rinsed off, we're going to go ahead and cut them into quarters, which is super easy since all we have to do is cut the potato in half. And then we'll stand those halves up on the flat side, which makes it super easy to make a perfect accurate cut right down the center. Or if you try to cut those when they're on their side, it's never going to be as accurate or as easy. And that's it. Once our potatoes are quartered, we'll transfer those into a saucepan with enough cold fresh water to cover them by an inch or so. And we'll bring those over to the stove and then add the only other mandatory ingredient at this point, which is going to be 2 tablespoons of kosher salt, which is probably way more than you would have used, but that's going to give us a great head start on the seasoning. So I highly suggest you do the same. And then I'm also going to at this point add 1 non-mandatory ingredient, which would be a couple cloves of smashed garlic. And I'm talking well smashed. All right, we're going to want to pound those more than a few times with the flat of a knife before we remove the skin. And once that's been accomplished, we'll transfer that into our water. And by cooking the garlic with the potatoes like this, you're going to get a very subtle, very gentle hint of garlic. Okay, there are other ways to get the garlic in, but for me, this is the best way to go. And then what we'll do is turn our heat up to medium-high so we can bring this up to a boil. And you know how they say a watched pot never boils? Well, that's true, but a glanced-at pot definitely boils. So what I want you to do is keep glancing at this, because we don't want to cook these potatoes at a rolling boil. So just as soon as you see it going from a nice simmer to an actual boil, we're going to want to back the heat down somewhere between medium-low and medium, so we can maintain a nice steady simmer that looks like this. And then as far as cooking times go, I can't really give you an exact number. Okay, it's probably going to be like 25-30 minutes. But time doesn't matter, since we're going to test with a knife. And we want to cook these very, very tender, as in borderline overcooked. And if a little bit of potato starts breaking off the outside, that's fine. And I know that might cause a problem with some potato recipes, but not this one. In fact, traditionally, some of the cooking water is actually whipped into the potatoes after we do the olive oil. Right? Besides under-seasoning, the only way to screw these up is to undercook the potatoes, which is going to produce something lumpy and disappointing. So please make sure you cook your potatoes enough. And then once we will drain those, at which point I'm going to transfer mine into this bowl so it's easier for you to see what's going on. Right? In real life, you could just put them back into the pot. And then what we'll do is grab our potato masher, and we will mash these until they're completely smooth, which if you followed my previous directions is going to be pretty easy. Oh, and if you did happen to undercook your potatoes, what you can do at this point is nothing. Okay, we can't fix that. So cook them nice and soft, knowing that a little bit of water in the potatoes is actually an advantage. And then what we'll do once our potatoes are mashed nice and smooth is switch to a whisk or an electric hand mixer, and we will whip in a tremendous amount of olive oil, which I like to do in a couple additions, but you could, if you want, probably add it all at once. And my general rule of thumb for this is 1/4 cup of olive oil per pound of potato. And while we definitely want extra virgin olive oil here, which one you choose is going to be up to you. I mean, you are, after all, the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle of your mashed potatoes with olive oil. But you should do a little bit of detective work, because what we want to use here is something fairly mild and buttery. Ideally one that has a nice beautiful golden color like the one I chose, which was a local Tuscan blend, which yes is an oxymoron since I live in Sonoma. But anyway, the point is an olive oil like that's going to work better for this than something that's on the peppery, grassy, more bitter end of the spectrum. But anyway, no matter which you use, once we have that whipped in, I'm going to switch to a spoon and we'll give this a quick stir just to double check everything's been mixed properly. At which point we'll grab a fork and give this a taste. Since believe it or not, even though we added a lot of salt to the water we cooked the potatoes in, you are almost always going to have to adjust with more salt here. And after giving it one final taste, I decided it was perfect. So I went ahead and transferred that into a serving bowl. And then I grabbed a spoon to give the top a little bit of a decorative texture, which is obviously completely optional. But we are going to want to drizzle some more olive oil over the top for presentation. So I really do think we want some nooks and crannies, some peaks and valleys, some particles and waves. Sorry, I've been watching lots of quantum physics videos. But anyway, the point is we'll make the surface a little more visually interesting before we finish up with one more drizzle of olive oil. And that's it, our ultra simple, super easy to make olive oil mashed potatoes are ready to enjoy. And that, my friends, was just a perfect bite of mashed potato. Right, texturally speaking, these are light and fluffy, and somehow, some way actually seem creamy. And then as far as the flavor goes, I'm a huge fan of butter, but it is sort of one note. I mean, that one note is incredibly delicious, but butter doesn't have what we call a complex flavor, whereas olive oil is very complex, which is why I think olive oil mashed potatoes are more interesting, especially when paired with other foods. Which is why, having said that, let me stop eating these as is and enjoy some topped with this gorgeous Roman-style chicken, which I'm pretty sure is going to be the next video, so consider yourselves teased. But no matter what you serve these with, they're easy to make, easy to digest, and shockingly delicious. And I really do hope you give them a try soon. So please follow the links below for the ingredient amounts, a printable written recipe, and much more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.